Welcome to Honest Money, your best guide to financial freedom. I'm Warren Ingram, the author of a few best-selling books, and I'm also an award-winning financial planner, and I've helped thousands of people on their journey to financial freedom. I'm not here to tell you what to do, but I am here to share my experience and the best ideas that I've learned, and I hope these ideas help you on your journey to financial freedom.
Hi, Warren. I have a Liberty retirement annuity, which I've had for 20 years. But after 20 years, is it worth moving it over to 10x? Would the reduction in fees be worth it, or is it worth it?
Thank you for your question around retirement annuities and whether it's worth transferring them from an insurance company to an index provider or a unit trust provider. I think it's an issue that a lot of people grapple with for retirement annuities in general, because some of the older retirement annuities, were really expensive and there were huge upfront fees and certainly the performance hasn't been great because of the fees and also because, stock markets didn't do that well for most of the last decade, thanks to the Zoomonomics. But I think, one of the things to consider when you're going to look at moving your retirement annuity is to understand the penalty that they're going to charge you. So it's usually called a Section 14 transfer penalty. And I think that, when I look at this for myself, I look at a percentage of 6%. So in other words, if the penalty is 6,000 Rand and your investment is 100,000 Rand, then that means that the penalty is 6% of the value of the retirement annuity. So for me, 6% is a critical number. If the penalty is less than 6%, I'm pretty happy to move my retirement annuity from an insurance company to a very low cost index provider or unit trust provider. The only issue there is you need to be prepared to leave that retirement annuity at the new home for at least sort of 3, and I actually think 6 years or longer. 3 years at the very least, but 6 years or more. And my logic is that sometimes you can get a retirement annuity at, let's say, 1% a year, whereas your insurance company retirement annuity might be costing you 3 or 4% a year. And so that fee saving of let's say 2% a year, or even 3% a year, you need to at least be invested for 3 or 4 years to be sure that you're going to get that fee saving back, so that you can offset against the penalty that you've originally paid. Obviously, if you're going to stay in the RA for another 10 years, then making the move as soon as you can at that penalty of 6% or less makes even more sense. So yes, I do like the idea of transferring retirement annuities. Just make sure that your penalty is clear and that you understand what's going on, and then be prepared for some paperwork, because these insurance companies don't make it that easy for you to transfer RAs. They give you a lot of hassles, but they're obliged by law to do it. So you're not stuck there for life, and you can certainly do it. I think the other thing to understand about penalties is the longer your money is invested, at the insurance company, the lower the penalty will eventually become. So it might be worth, if let's say they tell you that the penalty is 10% of the value of your RA. Once you've stopped puking in disgust, just understand that if you review that every year, you might find that penalty dropping quite quickly at some point, in which case it might make sense to delay the transfer for another year or two, and then you can move it. So I'm sorry that you're going to pay a penalty like that and that you've had such bad returns. Unfortunately, that's often down to fees. And that's not specific to any particular insurance company. That's just, I think insurance company RAs are expensive. And I don't like the fact that they lock us into these contracts. They always come up with a marketing reason why. But I think, to pay as you go fees makes much more sense to me. So to transfer your money from an insurance company to an investment platform or an index tracker platform, it makes lots of sense, because they're not going to charge you upfront fees. They're only going to charge you pay as you go or ongoing fees. And they certainly won't lock you into a contract to stay with them for the next decade or two. You can always move again if you need to. So yes, I think do your homework. Make sure. I'm not going to give you a comment on the particular insurance company you're asking about, or the investment platform that you want to go to. I think understanding that low costs are a huge driver of performance, and then make sure that that you understand the fees and the implications of that. But good luck. I think it might make sense to do what you're considering.
Good day, Warren and the team. I have a question. I'm 39 years old and very recently married. My husband and I have purchased a new property which we have moved into. My old townhouse has been rented out, and I refinanced the bond as I had almost paid it off. I refinanced to the value of 700,000, even though the property is now estimated at a value of 900,000. I wanted the extra money for three reasons. Firstly, I wanted to benefit from the tax set-off of the interest on the bond against the rental income. Secondly, I want to make some improvements to my mum's house. And thirdly, due to the lower interest rate, wanted to invest in the stock market, hoping that the performance will outdo the savings on interest. I need your help, please. In light of all this recent talk about US inflation and uncertainty with global markets, where should I be putting my money? Or should I be pumping the extra money into our new bond? My husband and I are married out of community of property, and the bond is in my name alone, although we are both paying towards the house-related cost. I hope you can help and advise as to how to best deal with this situation. Thanks.
Congratulations on your recent marriage. That's wonderful news, and well done for being in such a great financial position to be able to consider investing and having one paid off property and potentially another rented one. So I think that you've got some good questions there around what to do with the money, and you've got a really nice sort of foundation, a financial foundation to build on. I think the first thing to understand is that the problem with debt is when life happens. So we go into another major lockdown or something horrible happens in your life. Having debt can be a heck of a financial burden, especially if it then forces you to have to sell one of your properties. Let's say the townhouse. Because you don't have the money to pay the bond anymore, and you don't have a tenant or whatever the deal is. I think that just understanding that debt is a decent tool of wealth creation. So, for example, if you borrowed money to do the long-term investing, it's not a bad idea. But what you need to understand is you need to have a lot of money available to settle that debt if something goes wrong. So I think that will be my first comment. Is I would probably at the start take a little bit of time to actually pay off that bond a little bit, because if you can build up a bit of extra money saved into the bond, then if you then use some of the money to do other things and especially around investing, then if something goes wrong, at least you've built up a good emergency fund and a good buffer inside the bond already, so that buys you time. And my suggestion is that you probably need at the very least 1 whole year's worth of bond repayments. So if that bond is costing you 7,000 Rand a month, then try and have at least 84,000 Rand of extra money saved in that bond, so that you've got an entire year to sort things out if things really go wrong in life, or if there's another big economic emergency. So having said all that, what should you consider? I think the one important thing about having interest on a buy-to-let property is, as you pointed out, you can write off the expense of the interest against the rent that you earn, and I think that's a very nice way to at least get some tax benefit from your investing career, and certainly a very legitimate way of saving some tax. So I think that there is merit in doing that. Just make sure you keep very careful records and make sure that SARS doesn't come back to you to catch you out on something because you weren't fully prepared for whatever happened with your record keeping. So if you do then have some extra money and you'd like to invest, I think I'm going to caution you against worrying too much about specific market events, particular things that are happening in the world at the time. Whether it's inflation in America right now, or the vaccination rollout in South Africa, or whatever it is, there are always going to be reasons to be fearful about why you should be investing. And I just think the thing to understand about investing is it's a 10 or 20 year investment career. What happens at the start, especially if you just have a rocky few months, will be completely irrelevant if you stay invested and stay committed to your portfolio over a decade or two. The little bumps along the way will just be that. There'll be small little bumps on a long, big upward journey. So I think if I were you, I wouldn't necessarily invest big lump sums. I would invest smaller amounts on a regular basis if you're going to build up your portfolio. So as an example, if you were going to invest 240,000 Rand as a lump sum, then do it in 20,000 Rand batches every month for a year, so that you build up your portfolio. And then I would be careful to be too narrow and too specific in my investments. So out of the 20,000 a month, I would do 10,000 a month into a local investment, something that's very nice and diversified, either a local unit trust that's, in shares, or a local index tracker, something like a top 40 index. And then the other 10,000 Rand a month, I would make invested in an overseas investment. You can do it, for example, in what they call feeder funds. Those are Rand denominated funds, but they're 100% invested overseas. So something like a world ETF is a very good idea. And if you have the combination and you start that portfolio, if something horrible goes wrong in America and the stock markets collapse, that you will lose money on the international portfolio, but you'll be helped because the likelihood is that the Rand will weaken as well. And that will give you some sort of a benefit. But the point is, if you're going to be investing for 10 or 20 years, worrying about what happened over a 3 or 6 month period is just not that important to you. You get much more benefit from staying invested and being committed over the long term. But all the way back to my starting point, if you're going to take money out of a bond to make an investment, I'm okay with that, but you have to make sure you've got lots of extra money around to help you if life happens and you just don't have the ability to pay off that bond. I wish you all the best in your investing and your new marriage. Thank you for listening to Honest Money. If you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to me on Twitter. My handle is @WarrenIngram. Don't forget to subscribe. We're on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Chat soon.